Is this a vacation for Chloe or something real? A 90-day the other way you ever watch someone fall in love and think, oh no, he's about to get wrecked again. Yeah, that's Jonathan, the man who's trying to rebuild his life after losing everything, his ex, his peace, and the one person who loved him without condition, his mom. And now, Chloe's walking back into his world, silk pillow and all, ready to turn his healing process into either redemption or absolute disaster. I mean, come on. When a girl's first concern about moving in is whether her silk pillowcase made it through TSA, you know this story's about to go left real fast. But what if it's not just about the pillow? What if that little luxury detail says everything about what's wrong in this relationship? Because Jonathan isn't just preparing his house, he's preparing his heart for someone who may only be there for the vacation vibes. And that, right there, is the kind of quiet heartbreak reality TV never warns you about. I'll say it straight. There's something off about this dynamic. Jonathan's over here putting shelves up for Chloe's skincare and packing his entire emotional recovery into one nervous smile, while Chloe's on her way like she's checking into a 5-star resort. And I can't lie, it's relatable. Ever tried to make someone feel at home in a space you're still learning to live in yourself? Yeah, that hits deep. Because beneath the smiles and hugs, this whole moving in moment feels like a test, not of love, but of endurance. And here's the thing, Jonathan's fear isn't unfounded. His last heartbreak wasn't just messy, it rewired him. You can see it in every nervous laugh, every pause when he says her name. He doesn't trust easily. Not after catching his ex with someone else. Not after holding his mother's hand through her final year of life, realizing that some people stay and others don't. So when he says Chloe's his first serious relationship since losing his mom, you can almost feel the weight of that. Because this isn't just love, this is resurrection. But the question is for who? Now before we go deeper, and trust me, we will, let's talk about what makes this relationship so fascinating. Because on one side, you have Jonathan, emotional grounded, working hard to create something stable. And on the other, Chloe, vibrant, charming, but maybe too used to a world where problems disappear with money and a quick flight home. So when she says she's here, for real, is she? Or is this just the next stamp in her passport of escapism? It's easy to romanticize these couples, until you realize most of them aren't in love with each other. They're in love with the idea of love. Jonathan's in love with healing. Chloe's in love with adventure. But neither of them seems prepared for what comes after the excitement fades and the Wi-Fi starts lagging. And this is where the tension really builds. Because behind Jonathan's soft voice and that, I'm just happy she's here, energy, you can feel a storm brewing. He's terrified that she'll wake up one morning, realize this isn't the luxury she's used to, and book the next flight home. He even admits it. She's never paid rent, electricity, or even her own phone bill. Like, how do you build a real future with someone who's never lived in the real world? That's not judgment, that's survival instinct. Now, let me drop something that most viewers missed. The forbidden knowledge hidden between Jonathan's words. When he talks about being nervous, it's not just about impressing her, it's about proving to himself that he's capable of being loved again. Without being abandoned. That's not romance. That's trauma therapy with beach views. And you can see it, every scene. He's performing stability, decorating his home like he's setting a trap for his own anxiety. Because deep down he's scared that love only exists to leave. And then there's Chloe, smiling, glowing, fresh off the plane, acting like she just landed in a TikTok vlog. She's not faking it. She's genuinely excited. But there's a difference between excitement and investment. Because excitement fades, and investment builds. So while she's talking about how warm the air feels, Jonathan's thinking, please don't leave when it gets real. You can feel the mismatch. He's thinking survival, she's thinking sunshine. He's building permanence, she's unpacking swimsuits. And that contrast, it's cinematic, it's messy, it's heartbreak waiting for its next season. And before you scroll or pause, hear me out. Because this is where it gets personal. I've seen this pattern before. Someone grieving tries to fix their pain by creating the perfect relationship. And in doing so, they end up falling for someone who reminds them of the very thing they lost: uncertainty. Jonathan's mom gave him unconditional love. Chloe gives him conditional affection, tied to comfort, luxury, and control. That's the secret no one wants to admit. Sometimes, we chase people who'll hurt us in familiar ways. Because that's what feels like home. And if you've ever been there, you know the silence after the airport reunion hits harder than the hug. The air gets weird, the house feels too small. Because now it's not vacation mode, it's reality. And reality is the one thing Chloe hasn't shown she can handle yet. But before we unpack her motives, let me say this once. Clearly, if you're into real honest breakdowns where we don't sugarcoat love stories or hide behind fake happy endings, you need to subscribe to Breakdown Epic right now. Because on this channel, we expose the truth reality TV tries to hide, the secrets between the smiles. Anyway, back to Chloe. She lands, greets him with that giggly airport energy, and instantly starts teasing him. And it's cute, for a moment. But it's also telling. When she says, "I never come here if you weren't here," it sounds sweet. But it also reveals something darker, because that means her connection isn't to the life, it's to the person. And when love is person, dependent instead of purpose, Dependent, it collapses the moment the person disappoints you. That's not partnership. That's dependency dressed up as romance. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Maybe Chloe just needs time to adjust. Maybe this is her starting point. Sure, but let's be real. Relationships don't test who we are when things are good. They test who we become when things get hard. And something tells me Chloe's never been uncomfortable long enough to find out who she really is. Jonathan, on the other hand, already met his breaking point. Years ago, he's seen loss up close. He's learned how quickly comfort disappears. So when he looks at Chloe, it's not just love, it's hope mixed with fear. He's hoping she's different, while knowing deep down she probably isn't. And that's the loop he's stuck in, the one so many of us can relate to. We fall for potential. We ignore red flags because we're desperate for peace. We build futures on people who only planned vacations. And then, when it ends, we tell ourselves it was fate, not a pattern. So let me ask you this. Do you think Chloe's in it for love, or for lifestyle? Because if you watch closely, every time Jonathan mentions commitment, her eyes shift. That's not editing, that's instinct. She's still deciding whether she's moving in, or just moving through him. And trust me, that question will define their entire season. Let's be honest. The way Chloe arrives tells us everything. The first thing she says after landing isn't, "I can't wait to see him." It's about the heat, the plane, her layers, and her luggage. Not her new life. Not her new home. Her bag. That's the subtle clue the show slips in without drawing attention, because it's not just a bag. It's a symbol of how temporary she still feels, like she's not unpacking forever, just visiting until the vibe fades. And yet Jonathan, bless his heart, looks at her like she's the answer to every prayer he's whispered since his mom passed. That's where it hurts. Because it's not about whether Chloe's good or bad. It's about how much weight he's putting on this love to fix something that only he can heal. It's like watching someone rebuild their house using sandbags. You know the tide's coming, but you can't look away. But let me give you the secret psychology behind this. The forbidden knowledge they don't teach you in relationship books. When you lose someone who made you feel safe, like Jonathan did with his mom, your brain starts craving that same safety again. So when someone like Chloe shows up warm and affectionate, even if it's surface level, your heart doesn't care. It's not looking for logic, it's looking for comfort. And that's how you end up calling something love, when it's actually survival. The truth is, love after loss is a dangerous kind of hope. You don't fall in love because you're ready. You fall because you're desperate to feel something again. And if that person happens to have a pretty face, a soft voice, and a suitcase full of chaos, well, that's all the heart needs to take the bait. Now, here's where I want to hear from you. Do you think Chloe truly came to build a life? Or is this just emotional tourism? Because let's not pretend she didn't say she has a one-way ticket. With that little smirk. The kind of smirk that says, I can leave whenever I want, but for now, let's see how it feels. Drop it in the comments right now. Is Chloe committed or just curious? And don't be shy. Your theories are half the reason we watch this show anyway. But oh, here's a detail I can't shake. When Jonathan compares seeing her to being in the barrel, riding the wave, that's not just poetic, that's subconscious honesty. Because what happens when you're in the barrel too long? You wipe out. That's exactly what this relationship feels like. One long wave that looks beautiful until gravity kicks in. And that's where the show gets brutally honest. Not through their words, but through their silence. Notice how every time she smiles, he stares just a little too long, like he's making sure it's real. And when she says, "You think I wasn't gonna come back?" There's laughter. But his eyes don't laugh back. That's not editing. That's fear wearing a polite grin. Now, let's rewind to something Jonathan said that most people ignored. He said, "I just want to be okay. Not, I want to be happy. Not, I want to be in love." He just wants okay. That's what heartbreak does. It lowers the bar so far that peace starts feeling like passion. And Chloe's arrival gives him the illusion of that peace for now. But illusions have an expiration date. And when reality hits, rent bills, expectations, Chloe's gonna face something she's never had to before: accountability. Let's talk about that for a second. Because I know some of you watching this right now have lived it. You fall for someone who's never faced consequences. You teach them how to live, how to love, how to stay. And in return, they teach you the one lesson you swore you didn't need again. How to lose yourself trying to keep them. That's Jonathan's real danger here. Not Chloe leaving, but Jonathan forgetting who he is just to make her stay. And maybe that's what makes this story so painfully real. Because deep down I think we all know, Chloe doesn't mean harm. She's just never had to fight for anything, while Jonathan's been fighting his whole life. It's imbalance disguised as chemistry, and chemistry burns fast. Now, for my favorite kind of question, the one that makes you pause before scrolling, what if Chloe isn't the villain here? What if she's the mirror? What if she's showing Jonathan everything he refuses to see about himself? His need to fix, his addiction to comfort, his fear of abandonment. Because if that's true, then the most dangerous part of this relationship isn't Chloe at all. It's what Jonathan becomes trying to love her. Let's play a little hypothetical, shall we? Imagine 6 months from now. The shelves he built are dusty, the silk pillow's been replaced by silence, and Chloe's gone back home. Would Jonathan blame her for leaving or himself for believing? Because that's where the heartbreak gets real. When you realize love didn't lie to you, you lied to yourself. And here's something personal. I've been there. Not in Aruba, but in that emotional space where you think love will heal what therapy couldn't. Where you decorate your pain so it looks like progress. Where you call someone home. Just because they helped you forget how cold it felt to be alone. But when they leave, and they always do, you're forced to face what you were avoiding all along. Yourself. That's why this story isn't just about Jonathan and Chloe. It's about all of us who mistake distraction for destiny. Who think new love means new self. But healing doesn't come from holding someone new. It comes from forgiving the person you were when the last one left. So as Chloe smiles and says it feels good to be back, I can't help but wonder, back to what? Because if it's love, she's got to prove it when the cameras stop rolling and the paradise starts looking like responsibility. And if it's just a vacation, well, paradise always ends at checkout. But hey, we've seen crazier things on 90 Day the Other Way. And if you've been following our channel, you know this show has a habit of turning fairy tales into cautionary documentaries. So, tell me, who do you think will break first? Will Chloe realize love isn't a luxury item? Or will Jonathan learn that heartbreak can't be cured by hospitality? Your theories might just end up in our next breakdown. So don't forget to comment yours below. Because this story isn't done, it's just beginning. And something tells me that by the end of this season, we're gonna see exactly what happens when one person treats love like a commitment, and the other treats it like content. And before we close, a little humor. Because you know I can't resist. When Jonathan said he was nervous and had to get her pillow ready, I felt that. Not because of love, but because I've also spent hours overthinking a relationship that probably needed therapy more than throw pillows. We've all been there. Fixing aesthetics when it's the foundation that's cracking. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this really is the start of something genuine. Maybe Chloe proves us all wrong and turns that vacation vibe into a lifelong story.